Why autumn has color. Mother Time had 4 daughters that she loved, loved, loved. Each one was different, and she loved each one deeply, in their own way. Her first daughter, they were all born at the same time, but the first one out of her womb was Spring. Spring she adored for her lightness, the brilliance of her color, her propensity to run around fast and play and laugh and giggle, though at some times she could be quite quiet and indrawn. And when she was, curtains of rain would fall all across the place where she was. But her times of being quiet always resulted in an after period of time in which she was refreshed and more colorful than before. And Mother Time loved her daughter Summer. Summer, with the deep, rich, profound laugh. Summer, who was so generous and always made sure that everyone had an abundance of something to eat or drink or entertainment. Summer, whose colors were even bolder than her sister Spring's. Summer, who was always warm to everyone she met. And at times, when she would take a break from being herself, and she would shower herself with warm waters, and then playfully sprinkle it all over people anywhere near her. And everyone would devolve into laughter and would play in her spritz. Mother Time had 2 more daughters. She loved her daughter Autumn, and it is about this daughter that I will tell this story. And the last daughter was Winter. Winter was very unlike her sisters. Winter was very independent, and she knew exactly who she was, and she was not having any of Spring or Summer's trite, glib frolicsomeness as she saw it. She was very serious, but she was a serious artist, and she found so much pleasure in gilding everything around her with silver and white. And sometimes when she was in a broody mood, she would turn the entire world gray and white. She was very powerful, and all the others respected her, and they made sure before they made any group decision to check in with what she wanted to say. And then there was Autumn. Autumn, less known than Winter and Summer, less rejoiced than Spring, less popular than her sisters. Autumn, she didn't have a big and powerful festival like Christmas or Yule to offer people. She didn't have the frivolity and the gaiety and the colors of Easter and May Day to offer people. She didn't have months of pleasure and vacation to offer people. And she felt left out, left behind, and less than. All of her sisters had so much color. Even Winter's silver and white was a bold color statement. She had brown and gray and burnt sienna and burnt umber. And what did people do during her time of the year? They raked leaves and burned them. She was filled with smoke, and she thought nobody likes smoke. Autumn was not feeling good about herself. And she went to Winter and she said, "Teach me what you do so that I can have something to appeal to people." And Winter tried to show her how to paint her branches silver. It didn't work because every time that Autumn tried to paint her tree branches with ice, well, it just wasn't cold enough and it just got everything wet. And then everyone complained because it was cold, colder than summer, and wet. And it just made people unhappy. And Autumn felt even worse about herself for making people feel unhappy. So she went to her sister Spring, her oldest sister, and yet in many ways her youngest. And she said, "Teach me to be special like you are. You have Easter and flowers and April showers. What can I do that's special with my brown leaves?" Spring said, "Well, a lot of people like to take my flowers and make them into bouquets and put them around their houses." So Autumn took some of her brown oak leaves and clustered them together and put them in a vase. But no one seemed especially happy about them. In fact, she shed so many leaves trying to make clusters and bouquets for everyone. It left the trees quite bare and the leaves were all over the ground again. And everyone grumbled about having to rake the leaves off their lawn. And Autumn fell further into a sense of despair. She went to Summer and she said, "Summer, you give so much. What can I give people? You give people so much fun and relaxation and joy, and you give people lakes and oceans and walks in the woods. What can I give them?" And Summer said, "You can borrow some of my gifts. You've got woods to walk in, even though the leaves have fallen. People will still enjoy that. And you've got harvest time. All of the things I'm growing, they only get ripe and ready to eat and be picked in your season. Give them harvest time." And Autumn, she went back to her own little house. She thought about it. She thought, "I have harvest time. Okay, I'll give everyone all of these vegetables, the pumpkins and the squashes, and I know I'll give people apples and pears, and there won't be bright peaches like Summer has, and there won't be grapes and plums, but I'll give people apples and pears." And she did this, and people were happy. And people took her apples and they pressed them into cider, and bakers made special donuts to dip into the cider. And Autumn felt good after a time. But autumn contains a late season, when the apples have all been picked, and the walks in the woods have been taken, and it just gets cold, and she succumbed back into feeling like she wasn't very special. So she went to her mother. She went to Time, and she said, "Mother, I don't feel like I'm as special as my sisters. Summer taught me how to do some of the things she does. She taught me how to give harvest time. And that was good for a bit, but then everyone picks everything and there's nothing left. Winter tried to teach me how to gild everything and make it look pretty, but I just got people cold and wet. Spring tried to tell me how to make flower bouquets, but I don't have flowers. All I've got are brown leaves. Mother, what can make me special?" And here is what Mother Time said to Autumn, her beloved daughter. "My darling Autumn, you are very special. everyone is born. Everyone has the joy of youth. Everyone reaches an age where they go out in the world and they explore and they have adventures and they create things. And this is summer. Everyone has a time when they're quiet and they turn within. Or they haven't been born yet and they're between the worlds. And they're fulminating in the darkness, creating a new spark of light that will soon burst forth. You play a part in this wheel. I made no mistakes when I gave birth to all four of you. Autumn, your part in this cycle is you have the last celebrations of the year. Before everything turns dark and quiet, you give away the last of the fruit. And then, Autumn, you lead people into dissolution. You prepare people for the sleep of death. You take people from all their busy activities and you bring them towards silence. You remove from people all the distractions and the temptations, and you give people over into the contemplations of winter. All that winter does, you prepare for. All that spring has promised and summer has delivered, you say goodbye to with one last hurrah. And here's the most important thing, Autumn, that you have, your gift. When you give people one last hurrah, you remind them what their gifts have been. And when you then turn them to silence, you allow them the space to feel what's inside of them. And in that space there is room for gratitude. Autumn, this is your gift. Gratitude. Autumn, you need to know this, and you need to celebrate it. When you're giving away the last gifts of summer, your pumpkins and your squashes, your apples and your pears, your cider, why don't you make it into a huge festival? Why don't you turn your leaves some other colors instead of just brown? Let them blaze forth in the colors of fire as you burn away the last of summer's presents. The last gifts burn away, and then they can subside into brown. And with this last hurrah, leading into the quiet period of gray and brown and silence, why don't you give them a holiday that reminds them of death, of their own death, of those who've died before them, and let them face death, and let them laugh at death, and let them celebrate death, and let them honor death. Let them bring food and offerings and honor those who are dead and bring a little life into the idea of death. Give them this. And when that is all past, give them a time for gratitude for all that they have experienced. Like a grandmother who has had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and sits in her chair looking over the family and thinking how good that all these people have come together to be one family. How lucky am I to be with these children. So shall you give them a time to look over all the gifts of their lives and to give thanks. And this is what Autumn did. She turned her maple leaves into flaming orange and red. She turned her beech and elm trees into bright dancing yellow. She created fires across the forests and in the yards. She gave people awe, along with the gifts of the harvest. And then she gave them Halloween and Dia de los Muertos and the days of facing death and laughing and remembering and offering. And then she gave them a quiet month in which they could be grateful for everything that went before and turn to face the oncoming quiet of winter and prepare themselves to go to sleep. That is why autumn is always tinged, at first with joy and then with nostalgia, because nostalgia is the combination of remembering with love and thanks. And Autumn sewed herself a bright cloak of orange and red and yellow, and she wore a crown of pumpkins. And she went forth with her sister, dancing in a circle year after year after year, each one bestowing their great gifts upon us all. How are you like Autumn? What gifts do you give? How do you prepare people for important experiences within themselves?